4 hours, 17 minutes, and 26 seconds. Zulu, USS Abraham Lincoln, had 97 seconds before the first Iranian Gator anti-ship missile entered terminal range, and 54 seconds before the real problem became irreversible. The carrier was on course 118 at 24 knots in the Gulf of Oman when USS Princeton's SPY-1DV lit up 11 hostile tracks on the eastern sector. 4 sea-skimming cruise missiles at 22 nautical miles, 6 Shahed 238 drones descending through 4,200 feet, and 1 higher track that Combat Direction Center still had labeled as reconnaissance clutter. The exact danger was already bad enough. A single missile hit into the forward aviation fuel zone or the starboard aircraft elevator would shut down flight operations instantly. But the room was under pressure for a different reason. The obvious attack was not the full attack. 54 seconds remained before Lincoln's standard evasive turn, paired with full power jamming, would hand Iran the corrected carrier position it actually wanted. The visible attack was only the outer layer. The real danger was somewhere else. To understand what was happening, you need to understand what Lieutenant Commander Maya Rios had logged 4 hours earlier, and why nobody in the strike group treated it like the start of a kill chain. Rios was the electronic warfare officer on Princeton, not the strike group commander, not the carrier captain, not the admiral with final release authority. Most of her job happened in fragments, short emissions, incomplete bearings, strange bursts that meant nothing until they suddenly meant everything. At 0 hours 6 minutes and 14 seconds, Zulu, 7 hours after the ceasefire formally took effect, Rios logged a 2-3 second C-band burst from the Iranian coast near Jask, followed by a 1-4 second silence and then a second burst at a slightly lower power level. The frequency pattern did not match routine coastal surveillance. It matched target quality update behavior. At 0, Patruzich, Shidoi, Chinzich, Shiunu, she added a second note after. E-2D Hawkeye Tiger 602 reported a medium-altitude aircraft-sized track holding 71 nautical miles east of the formation without changing altitude, speed, or orbit width for 23 minutes. It was too disciplined for weather clutter and too patient for a normal patrol. At 1 hours 28 minutes and 39 seconds, she filed the line that should have moved straight to the top of the stack. She wrote that the Iranian network was not searching widely. It was holding a corridor open and waiting for the carrier group to resume predictable peacetime movement under ceasefire assumptions. What the system believed was happening was not what was actually happening. The common picture showed a carrier group transiting under a fragile political pause. Rios's picture showed Iran using the ceasefire to reduce alert posture, map reaction times, and position one relay track exactly where it could convert a defensive maneuver into targeting data. At 3 hours 11 minutes and 5 seconds, she wrote one last note that almost disappeared inside the routine traffic. If Iran fired, she believed the first salvo would not be the decisive salvo. It would be the forcing salvo. It would be designed to make the defense transmit, turn, and separate in a way the second layer could exploit. That is why 417 mattered. The first problem was visible. The second problem was the one that mattered. Visible problem: 4 Ghadr cruise missiles and 6 Shahed 238s coming in low against a U.S. aircraft carrier group. Real problem: the carrier's standard survival move was about to become the final targeting correction for 2 Iranian Khalij Fars anti-ship ballistic missiles that had likely launched before anyone in the room knew they existed. Iran did not design the weapon to defeat the defense. Iran designed it to make the defense irrelevant. The cruise missiles were there to force the jammers on and the carrier into a hard port break. The drones were there to clutter the sectors and occupy the escorts. The high track east of the formation was there to confirm exactly where Lincoln moved once the defense did what it was trained to do. At 4 hours 17 minutes and 31 seconds, Princeton CIC pushed the 11 inbound tracks across the strike group net. At 4 hours 17 minutes and 34 seconds, the first recommendation came exactly as Iranian planners would have expected. Lincoln execute emergency port turn 30 degrees accelerate to 29 knots. Princeton and USS Sterett radiate at full power. Engage the cruise missiles with SM-2 and ESSM, and let the SLQ-32V6 suite flood the sector with jamming. It was a correct answer to the visible attack. It was the wrong answer to the full attack. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 38 seconds, Rios asked for 7 seconds before Lincoln committed to the break turn. 7 seconds. On a command net already counting down missile range, that request sounded reckless. It was not reckless. It was the only smart move available. Rios pointed at the higher track east of the formation, the one still sitting just inside the edge of certainty, and said the words that changed the fight. If we turn now, that track is not observing the attack. It is finishing it. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 41 seconds, the room stopped for a half second because junior voices do not usually interrupt the opening move of a carrier defense unless they are very sure of something. Rios was sure of one thing. The carrier could survive 4 cruise missiles. What it could not survive was helping Iran solve the final geometry for 2 ballistic weapons timed behind them. To understand why the defense was close to failing, you need to understand how little time exists between radar certainty and physical damage once anti-ship missiles are already inside 25 nautical miles. At the speed the Gators were running, the strike group had barely more than a minute. Every second lost to the wrong assumption made the real problem harder. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 44 seconds, Lincoln held course 118 for 8 more seconds. That looked wrong to anyone staring only at the missile tracks. It denied Iran the first thing it needed, a clean defensive turn. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 46 seconds, Princeton assigned 2 SM-2 Block 3C missiles to the lead Gator pair. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 48 seconds, Sterett queued 4 ESSMs against the lower Shahed tracks, crossing 14 nautical miles. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 50 seconds, Lincoln launched 2 Nulka decoys off the starboard quarter, not to defeat the whole raid, but to create a false center of mass 1,100 yards off the carrier's real line. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 52 seconds, Tiger 602 switched to passive track refinement on the eastern sector. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 54 seconds, EA-18G Growler Raven 511, already orbiting 82 nautical miles south on tanker timing, was redirected north-northeast with immediate priority on the suspected relay track. At 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 57 seconds, Rios gave the second insight. The Shaheds were not converging efficiently on Lincoln. They were spreading just wide enough to force Princeton and Sterett to widen their fire control sectors and keep their emissions stable. The first problem was visible. The second problem was the one that mattered. Iran was not trying to overwhelm Aegis with the drones. Iran was using the drones to freeze Aegis into a bright, predictable shape. At 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 1 seconds, Lincoln received the revised maneuver order. Hold speed 24 knots for 9 more seconds, then make a 14-degree starboard correction instead of the expected port break. At 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 3 seconds, 2 SM-2 CES left Princeton. At 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 5 seconds, Sterett launched 2 ESSMs. At 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 7 seconds, Raven 511's ALQ-218 system detected a directional uplink from the high track on bearing 081 at 68 nautical miles. The clutter track was not clutter. It was a Mohajer 6 acting as a relay. At 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 9 seconds, Tiger 602 finally saw the layer behind the layer. 2 high-diving objects appeared on the upper elevation picture at 84 nautical miles, descending through 86,000 feet on a shallow terminal geometry that only made sense for anti-ship ballistic missiles correcting late. The system believed it was fighting a cruise missile raid. What the system believed was happening was not what was actually happening. The cruise missiles were the forcing move. The Khalij Fars pair was the kill move. At 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 12 seconds, Lincoln executed the 14-degree starboard correction. That single turn broke the geometry Iran had prepared for the expected port break and pushed the carrier's predicted position 620 yards outside the update basket. The relay drone had been holding open. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 14 seconds, the first Gator was destroyed 13.6 nautical miles from the carrier. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 16 seconds, the second Gator missed its data link refresh, dipped 9 feet lower than expected, and turned toward the starboard Nulka decoy. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 18 seconds, Raven 511 started directional jamming on the Mohajer relay. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 20 seconds, Rios told the Admiral not to increase jamming power broadly. That sounded insane in the middle of a missile attack, but she understood the trap. Iran did not need the U.S. defense suppressed. It needed it illuminated. Broad jamming would give the ballistic seekers a larger, cleaner signature to work with. The response had to become smart, not just aggressive. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 22 seconds, Princeton launched 2 SM-6 dual-eye missiles against the descending Khalij-Fars pair. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 24 seconds, Sterrett's second ESSM salvo hit 2 Shaheds at 8.2 nautical miles. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 27 seconds, the third and fourth Shaheds split wider than expected, confirming Rios's earlier reading that they existed to stretch sectors, not to score the actual hit. The visible attack was only the outer layer. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 29 seconds, Lincoln held its new heading rather than continue turning. That decision mattered because a larger correction would have rebuilt the ballistic solution Iran expected once the relay recovered. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 31 seconds, the second Gator detonated on Nulka at 3,400 yards off the carrier's starboard quarter. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 33 seconds, the third Gator was hit by the first ESSM backup shot from Sterrett. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 35 seconds, the fourth Gator survived the first intercept attempt, dropped to 12 feet above the water, and continued inbound at 0.78 Mach. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 37 seconds, Princeton's first SM-6 detonated near the lead Khalij-Fars re-entry vehicle at 41,000 feet. The target broke apart and fell in 3 pieces. One ballistic threat was gone. The second remained. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 40 seconds, Raven 511's jamming collapsed the Mohajer uplink for 2.8 seconds. That brief blackout was enough. The surviving Khalij-Fars seeker shifted 5 degrees off the carrier's real track and began hunting the brighter false picture created by the Nulka decoys and Princeton's controlled emissions. The real danger was somewhere else, and now it had just missed the handoff it needed. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 43 seconds, the surviving Gator crossed 5.7 nautical miles. Lincoln's SLQ-32 spoofed its terminal seeker 4 degrees right. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 45 seconds, the second SM-6 rose to meet the last Khalij-Fars. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 47 seconds, Rios made the next call. Do not shoot the Mohajer with a long-range missile yet. Jam it, blind it, then kill the launch network. She was not thinking about the next 5 seconds. She was thinking about the next 15 minutes. If the relay drone died before the strike group fixed the coastal emitter chain, Iran could simply light another node and fire again. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 49 seconds, the fourth Gator detonated 1,280 yards off Lincoln's bow after overshooting the spoofed return. No missile had reached the carrier. The loud layer had failed. The higher layer was still alive for 4 more seconds. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 51 seconds, the second SM-6 hit the surviving Khalij-Fars at 28,000 feet. Debris tracked north-northeast and burned out over open water. The carrier lived. The raid had failed. But Rios did not treat that as the end of the fight because she knew the visible attack had only been the outer layer of a larger plan. To understand why Iran's full plan collapsed, you need to understand what Rios had really been tracking since midnight. She was not following single emissions. She was following behavior. The Iranian coastal network had used the ceasefire to thin U.S. Attention, use the drone relay to preserve line of sight. Use the cruise missiles to force doctrine, and use the ballistic pair to punish the doctrine once it appeared. That told her something about the command logic on the other side. The battery commander trusted his prepared sequence. Officers who trust prepared sequences often trust their post-launch displacement plan too much. Rios believed the launch vehicles had not withdrawn far inland. They had shifted 11 to 16 kilometers west of their firing points to pre-surveyed asphalt near a dry wadi, counting on U.S. attention to remain on the defended ship rather than the launch chain. At 4 hours 18 minutes and 56 seconds, while debris from the ballistic intercept was still falling, Rios pushed 3 geolocated emitters and 1 predicted reload site to the strike group commander. That single overlay turned survival into retaliation. At 4 hours 19 minutes and 2 seconds, Tiger 602 confirmed 2 of the 3 emitters with passive ESM correlation. At 4 hours 19 minutes and 7 seconds, Raven 511 stopped broad denial and narrowed its beam long enough to let the emitters speak again. At 4 hours 19 minutes and 10 seconds, they did. Iranian operators, believing the U.S. was still sorting the raid, keyed 2 short guidance bursts from the coast. That was the mistake Rios had been waiting for. At 4 hours 19 minutes and 13 seconds, Princeton locked the coordinates. At 4 hours 19 minutes and 16 seconds, Lincoln launched 4 farads per ampere, 1-8E Super Hornets from alert deck status with AGM, 154 JSOW, and AGM-88E ARGM loadouts. At 4 hours 19 minutes and 22 seconds, USS Sterett fired 4 Tomahawks at the fixed command van location near Jask, while the air wing took the mobile launch vehicles. The response was ruthless, but it was ruthless because it was precise first. At 4 hours 21 minutes and 48 seconds, Raven 511 reported the Mohajer 6 had lost orbit stability and crashed into the water after sustained uplink disruption. At 4 hours 24 minutes and 11 seconds, the first JSAW hit the western reload site. At 4 hours 24 minutes and 17 seconds, the second struck 1 transporter erector launcher on the move. At 4 hours 24 minutes and 29 seconds, 2 AARGMs destroyed the active coastal guidance radar that had fed the Gators. At 4 hours 25 minutes and 3 seconds, Sterett's Tomahawks hit the command node and secondary power truck. By 4 hours 26 minutes and 40 seconds, the entire Iranian firing chain for that sector had collapsed. The enemy plan had been exact. It was not just to damage an American warship, it was to weaponize the ceasefire itself, to force a U.S. carrier into a defensive maneuver under political restraint, record a hit under global attention, and prove that the opening hour of peace was the safest hour to attack. That plan failed because one officer refused to read the first layer as the whole attack. The first problem was visible. The second problem was the one that mattered. Lincoln survived. Its reactors survived. Its flight deck survived. Its air wing survived. Princeton survived. Sterett survived. U.S. casualties were 0 killed and 0 wounded. Iran lost 4 Ghadar missiles, 6 Shahed, 2 3-8 drones, 2 Khalij Fars anti-ship ballistic missiles, 1 Mohajer, 6 relay drone, 2 transporter erector launchers, 1 coastal guidance radar, 1 command van, and 1 reload site. The retaliation fit the intent. Iran had tried to turn American doctrine into a target. The United States turned Iranian sequencing into a kill chain against itself. And the hardest line in the after-action review was not about radar power, interceptor range, or political timing. It was that USS Abraham Lincoln was still moving because Maya Rios saw that the ceasefire had not reduced the threat at all. It had only made the trap quieter.